There are some people you lose because you stop loving them, and then there are people you lose because you believe you can find someone better. But sometimes, life has a cruel way of showing you exactly what you threw away. Daniel had once believed that money could solve every problem. He was young, ambitious, handsome, and born into a wealthy family that owned one of the most successful hotel businesses in the city. His father had always told him, "Money gives you choices. Never choose a life that makes you struggle." Daniel believed every word. Then he met Amelia. Amelia was nothing like the women Daniel had grown up around. She didn't wear expensive clothes. She didn't drive a luxury car. She didn't come from a powerful family. She worked long hours at a small restaurant just to support herself and her mother. But there was something about her that money couldn't buy. She was kind. She was honest. And when Daniel was around her, he didn't feel like the son of a billionaire. He simply felt like himself. They met one rainy evening when Daniel walked into the restaurant to escape the storm. The restaurant was almost empty. Amelia was cleaning a table near the window when Daniel walked in. "Can I get a coffee?" he asked. Amelia smiled. "Of course. You look like you need one." Daniel laughed. "I probably do." That simple conversation became the beginning of something neither of them expected. Daniel started returning to the restaurant. Sometimes he came for coffee, sometimes he came for dinner. But eventually, Amelia realized he wasn't coming for the food. He was coming to see her. Within a few months, they had fallen deeply in love. Daniel loved the way Amelia listened. She didn't care about his family's money. She didn't ask about his expensive watch or his car. She cared about his dreams. One night, while they were sitting on a bench outside the restaurant, Daniel looked at her and said, "Amelia, I don't know what I would do without you." She smiled. "You'll never have to find out." Daniel took her hand. "I want to marry you." Amelia's smile disappeared for a moment. "Are you serious?" "I've never been more serious about anything." For the first time in her life, Amelia allowed herself to believe that she could have a happy future. But Daniel's family had other plans. When Daniel told his parents that he wanted to marry Amelia, his father became furious. "You cannot marry that girl." Daniel stared at him. "Why?" "Because she has nothing. She has more character than most people we know." His father shook his head. "You are my son. One day you will take over this company. You need a wife who understands our world." Daniel's mother added quietly, "There are families who would be honored to have their daughter marry you." Daniel refused to listen. "I love Amelia." His father gave him an ultimatum. "If you marry her, you will lose your position in this family business. You will receive nothing from me." Daniel was shocked. He had never imagined that his father would force him to choose between his family and the woman he loved. For several days, Daniel fought with himself. Amelia could see that something was wrong. One evening, she asked him, "Daniel, what happened?" He looked at her, but couldn't answer. "Is it your family?" Daniel nodded. "They don't want me to marry you." Amelia's eyes filled with tears. "And what do you want?" Daniel looked away. "I don't know." That was the moment something inside Amelia broke. She had expected Daniel to fight for their love. Instead, he was beginning to doubt it. A few days later, Daniel met a woman named Victoria. Victoria came from an extremely wealthy family. Her father owned several businesses and had close connections with Daniel's family. Daniel's father believed she was the perfect wife for his son. At first, Daniel refused to consider her. But his father kept reminding him of everything he could lose: the company, the family fortune, his future. And slowly, Daniel began to convince himself that love was not enough. He told himself Amelia would understand. He told himself he was making the responsible choice. But deep down, he knew he was betraying the woman who loved him. The night Daniel ended their relationship, Amelia stood in front of him, with tears running down her face. "Is there someone else?" Daniel remained silent. "That is not what I asked you," he finally whispered. "I'm getting married." Amelia stared at him. "To whom?" "Victoria." For several seconds, neither of them spoke. Then Amelia asked the question that Daniel would remember for the rest of his life. "Do you love her?" Daniel couldn't answer. Amelia nodded slowly. "I understand." Daniel reached for her hand. "I never wanted to hurt you." She pulled her hand away. "You didn't hurt me because you stopped loving me." She wiped her tears. "You hurt me because you chose money over me." Daniel looked down. Amelia walked away. That night, Daniel lost the woman who loved him, and he gained the future his family had chosen for him. He married Victoria. The wedding was extravagant. Hundreds of guests attended. The newspapers called it the wedding of the year. Daniel smiled for the cameras. But when he looked at his new wife, he felt something missing. He had everything people dreamed about, except happiness. Years passed. Amelia disappeared from his life completely. Daniel never heard from her again. He assumed she had moved on. What he didn't know was that Amelia had used her heartbreak as motivation. After the breakup, Amelia's mother became seriously ill, and Amelia needed money for her treatment. She took every job she could find. She worked during the day and studied business at night. There were nights when she fell asleep over her books. There were mornings when she went to work exhausted. People laughed at her dreams. Some told her she was wasting her time. But Amelia remembered something Daniel had once told her. You have a heart bigger than your circumstances. She decided to prove that her circumstances would never define her. Years later, Amelia started a small business with the little money she had saved. The business almost failed. She lost nearly everything, but she refused to quit. She studied the market. She learned from her mistakes. She built a small team, and slowly, the business grew. One client became 5. 5 became 50. Then companies began approaching her. Within a few years, Amelia had transformed her small business into a major corporation. She became one of the youngest and most respected CEOs in the city. She dressed differently. She carried herself differently. But her heart remained the same. She had become successful without becoming cruel. Meanwhile, Daniel's life was beginning to fall apart. His father's company had expanded too quickly. They had borrowed huge amounts of money to build new hotels. Then the economy changed. Several major investments failed. The company's debts became impossible to manage. Banks began demanding repayment. Daniel's father tried everything. He sold properties. He cut expenses. He asked business partners for help. Nothing worked. Eventually, the family company was only days away from bankruptcy. Daniel was now responsible for saving the business, but every door he knocked on was closed. One morning, his father walked into his office with a file in his hand. There is one company that can help us. Daniel looked up. Who? His father placed the file on the desk. Amelia Carter. Daniel froze. For a moment, he thought he had heard the name wrong. Amelia? His father nodded. She owns one of the fastest-growing investment companies in the country. Daniel stared at the documents. The woman he had abandoned because she had nothing was now wealthy enough to save the family business. His father looked at him. You know her, don't you? Daniel swallowed. Yes. Then you need to arrange a meeting. Daniel didn't sleep that night. He kept remembering the restaurant, the rainy evening, her smile, the promise he made, and the night he walked away from her because he believed money was more important than love. The next morning, Daniel requested a meeting with Amelia. Her assistant informed her, Mr. Daniel Hayes is asking to see you. Amelia became silent. She hadn't heard that name in years. After a long pause, she said, Tell him he can come tomorrow. The next day, Daniel walked into Amelia's office. The woman sitting behind the desk was almost unrecognizable. She was confident, calm, successful, but when she looked at him, he could still see the same kindness in her eyes. Daniel stood there awkwardly. Hello, Amelia. She smiled politely. Hello, Daniel. He sat down. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Daniel said, I need your help. Amelia looked at him. I know. Daniel lowered his eyes. My family's company is in serious trouble. I've read the reports. We could lose everything. Amelia leaned back in her chair. You came here because you believe I can save you. Daniel nodded. Yes. She looked at him for a long time. Then she asked, Do you remember what you told me the night you left? Daniel's eyes filled with regret. Yes. You told me you needed a different life. He nodded. And now you're asking me to save the life you chose instead of me. Daniel couldn't respond. Amelia stood and walked toward the window. I used to wonder why you left me. She turned around. For years, I blamed myself. Daniel looked at her. But eventually, I realized something. She smiled sadly. You didn't leave because I wasn't good enough. You left because you believed I wasn't valuable. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. I was wrong. Yes, Amelia said softly. You were. Daniel stood. I am sorry. Amelia looked at him. I believe you. Daniel was surprised. But being sorry doesn't change the past. He nodded. I know. Amelia returned to her desk. Then she opened the company's financial proposal. I will help your family. Daniel looked shocked. You will? Yes. But why? Amelia looked directly into his eyes. Because I know what it feels like to lose everything. Daniel couldn't speak. But there will be conditions, she continued. Daniel nodded. I will accept them. Amelia explained that she would invest enough money to rescue the company, but she would take controlling ownership of the failing division. Daniel agreed immediately. The deal was signed. Within months, the company began recovering. Employees who had feared losing their jobs were saved. The hotels remained open. Daniel's family survived. But Daniel was no longer the same man. He had finally learned the lesson he had refused to understand years earlier. Money could buy comfort. It could buy houses, cars, luxury, influence. But it couldn't buy the person who loved you before you had anything. One evening, Daniel met Amelia outside the office. Thank you, he said. She smiled. You're welcome. I don't know how to repay you. You don't have to. Daniel hesitated. Can I ask you one thing? What? Are you happy? Amelia smiled. Yes. Daniel nodded. That is all I wanted to know. He turned to leave. Amelia watched him walk away. She had once believed losing Daniel was the worst thing that could happen to her. But years later, she understood that losing him had been the beginning of finding herself. She had become successful, not because she wanted to prove Daniel wrong, not because she wanted revenge. She succeeded because she finally understood that her worth was never determined by the amount of money in her bank account. Daniel had chosen money over her. Years later, the woman he abandoned became the only person who could save him, and perhaps that was life's greatest lesson. Sometimes, the person you reject because they have nothing may become the person you desperately need when you have nothing left. So never judge someone's worth by where they are today. The person struggling beside you today could become the person everyone is looking for tomorrow. And if someone ever makes you feel worthless because you don't have money, remember this: your current situation is not your final destination. Keep working, keep believing, keep growing, because one day, the same people who look down on you may have no choice but to look up to you. If this story touched your heart, tell us in the comments. Would you forgive someone who abandoned you because you were poor? And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. There are many more emotional stories waiting for you here on The Shadowed Heart. Until the next story, remember, never let someone else's opinion decide your worth.